Yes, yes. Today we feast. That's right, jingle stick. I don't even want to know what jingle stick means. It's not that kind of a day. The Texans win 41-21, and I can already sense it. I already know, and I don't want you to feel guilty about it. We've gotten persnickety. We've gotten persnickety about these Texans victories, and thanks to BetUS for sponsoring this video, this live stream. The Texans win by a very comfortable margin of 20 points, and I've already had multiple people come at me saying, 3 touchdowns by this Patriots team. How do you allow such depravity? What happened to America in an election year? Nonsense. Nonsense. This is what happened. And as one of you said, Dr. Gonzo, Texas, nice call on the turnovers finally breaking loose. 4 turnovers caused today by the Texans, 4 takeaways. You end up getting lopsided victories like this when you have turnovers. The Texans' defense has been playing well enough that they should have had more than 3 takeaways headed into this game. They were amongst the worst in the league, 28th or 29th in the league in takeaways. But the defense had been playing well enough that it shouldn't have been like that. Will Anderson gets 3 sacks. Ends up causing Danielle Hunter caused one of the fumbles. Will Anderson has 3 sacks. Kalen Bullock has a recovered fumble and the interception. Eric Murray, in what was a very hot and cold day for Eric Murray, ends up getting an interception. And, yeah, this was the opportunistic defense that we were looking for. So Will Anderson definitely gets one of my player of the games, as if I had that. I don't have a championship belt to give or anything. But Will Anderson, 100%. Joe Mixon, this reaction's a little bit late because I wanted to edit up a Joe Mixon highlight reel that wouldn't get flagged for copyright. Here you go. Just for your viewing enjoyment right now, Joe Mixon. Remember, as a receiver, Joe Mixon on the day, 2 catches for 30 yards with 1 touchdown. As a runner, 13 carries for 102 yards, 7.8 yards per attempt with a long of 59. Dameon Pierce got in on the action with 8 carries for 76 yards, a long of 54. And I think the biggest thing I would say about this day for the offense is that if we hadn't been so conditioned to be so pessimistic about the run game, I think we might have been patient at some point and said, all right, well, hey, look, all right, they're getting stuffed at the line here and there, but this tends to roll up, and by the second half, the floodgates will open up. And that's kind of the way it ended up working out. They were at above 3 yards per carry if you take away the 2 50-plus yard runs. Early in the game, there were a lot more stuffs and failures than I would have liked. Joe Mixon had a couple runs that were like for 3 or 4 yards that I think with other running backs would have been stuffed at the line of scrimmage. I mean, it's night and day the difference that he makes, and that he can offset it with his ability as a receiver too. It's a different football team. Dameon Pierce, Damian, who after his first carry, I thought, man, I don't know if he's seeing things right. I thought he could have broken the first carry that he got stuffed. But after that, he had the one really nice long run. He had another good 10-plus yard run, and he looked fast. I thought he looked really good. I think that Bobby Sloak, even though I had questions about his play calling early especially, I mean, that first touchdown, you throw a fade to Tank. You try to run right up the gut on goal line, like things that are low probability and or the Texans can't do. Physically, the offensive linemen, they can do certain things and they can't do others. I thought that Bobby Sloak today did a good job of scheming up runs that the Texans are starting to show some aptitude with, just where they can hit guys on angles with pullers, with fullbacks, with some of the guys coming across the formation. This is the kind of stuff that I think can pop for the Texans, and they just got to keep to build on it as long as Joe Mixon is healthy. I feel good about that. The Texans as a group, because Gumbawale averaged 4 yards per carry. As a group, they averaged 7.4 yards per carry. And I did feel like it was a volume affair. I felt, in hindsight, I can say, well, yeah, they were running the ball, and then eventually everything clicked and it worked out for them. We've just seen them try to run the ball without Joe Mixon, and it doesn't quite work out the same way. It's kind of like when you got a great financial investing plan, but meanwhile you're in debt and you're like just struggling to pay for credit cards. That's what Bobby Sloak was doing for these last few weeks. It felt like he had a master financial plan, but he was doing it all with like 30% interest credit cards. Now you actually get Joe Mixon, an actual bona fide earner. You can come in and, pay down your school loans for you, take care of you like a good lady. Yeah. So nice to see the game open with a Tank touchdown. I concur. How many laydown catches Tank had in this game? 4 or 5. Crazy accuracy. I thought the dink and dunk aspect yes. And as I promised, I am 100% eager to be completely wrong about my pessimism about Dameon Pierce during training camp. I will take anybody telling me I told you so, what have you. I want you to reserve it for a couple weeks at least because I don't want to jinx anything. But yes, I will 100% own that I was pessimistic about Dameon. As far as CJ goes, CJ 20 for 31, 192 yards, 6.2 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. And I thought the throw to Dalton Schultz that Dalton couldn't come up with, I think, look, Dalton, man, if he hadn't had that drop later on, Dalton's the weirdest dude in that he actually has really good hands. Last year, he had the fewest drops amongst tight ends in the league, but they come up. The drops that he does have are the easy drops. He used to be like that, Terrell Owens. I know everybody's always comparing Dalton Schultz to Terrell Owens, but that's it feels a little bit like that. Make the incredible catches and then miss on the easy ones. But the one in the end zone, CJ could have put a little bit more on that, put it out in front of him, and he was under duress when he threw it. But it was a good day for CJ, obviously. Let's see. Still not sold on Pierce until he strings a few games together. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to reserve and withhold until he really just But he looked good on that long run, man. He looked really good. CJ without Nico. So how are we feeling about CJ without Nico? This was the weirdest thing. Going into this game, the Texans had the number 2 aerial attack in all of football, if all you go by is gross yardage. We've sit here, and I told Sean, I was like, you know what, Sean, you and I, but, mostly me, we're idiots. This thing's way simpler than we need to, paint any nuance or anything. They're the second. Teams have been playing cover 2 versus them the entire year. And we've said, well, they're making it hard to operate this, that, the other. Meanwhile, Nico Collins was leading the league in receiving going into today. And the Texans had the second most passing yardage in the league. But they were 19th in scoring. 19th. And today, I think, is evidence that, a lot of that was simply the Texans screwing themselves with penalties, just robbing themselves of possessions with stupid penalties, which they did not have today nearly to the degree that they had earlier in the year. And that the second part is that they couldn't run the ball. Joe Mixon comes back, possibly 2022 era. Dameon Pierce returns, and lo and behold, look, they score boatloads of points. And then I'll add on to that. I haven't been crushing the defense for not getting turnovers because I felt like they were doing everything right. They were pressuring the passer. They've been swarming to the ball. I think they've been opportunistic and they've had opportunities. Sometimes just the oblate spheroid-shaped ball and fate takes the turnovers away from you. They came back in droves today. As far as the Texans giving up 3 touchdowns to the Patriots, yes, it's fair to be upset about that. The thing that I wonder about, and I'm eager to go back and watch, is it felt like with Jimmy Ward out and Kamari Lassiter out, and with the Texans' 4-man pass rush doing a pretty damn good job, I felt like D'Amico was blitzing more than he needed to. And a lot of those times, those catches over the middle, Eric Murray, in single coverage across the formation with Kalen Bullock was off. Kalen Bullock did not get a good jump on that. I believe Kalen was the deep safety, and maybe he could have prevented a touchdown if he had a better read or more anticipation on that. But I felt like they didn't need to be blitzing that much. And this is all of a sudden D'Amico 2.0 has been blitzing way more as a defensive coordinator than he ever did in his 2 years at San Francisco or last year with Houston. They went into the game with the 13th highest blitz rate. He had never been higher than 20th when he was in San Francisco, or last year they were pretty far back. And I like it. I like it that he's blitzing selectively. I think you got to look in all right, how much of that is because when you have Kamari Lassiter and Derek Stingley, you feel good about it? Derek Stingley's touchdown that he let up, there's a rare instance where I felt like Derek was running pace for pace with Booty, and turned, and Derek tracks the ball really well, but it felt like he misjudged the arc of the ball a little bit, and that was enough time for Booty to get a little bit of hand fighting in and gain that separation on him. So the couple of the blips on the radar from today from players who I otherwise worship and admire and love. Derek Stingley on that play. I think CJ on a couple of his throws and or decisions, but nothing that I'm overly worried about. The one kind of flukish interception. Let's see. Should we be nervous about the Pats' explosive plays going forward, or is that just a result of the coverage we played that we couldn't play against the Mahomes? I think there's a little bit of that. I mean, okay, it's perfectly natural to think, okay, what does that performance today do versus just even, say, the Green Bay Packers, and then certainly on into the Ravens and everybody else? It was not, it wasn't as overwhelmingly suffocating, I think, as the score might suggest. I think there have been other games this year where the Texans actually just beat up the other team on a down by down basis more than they did today. I would go to the Bears game and the Colts game perhaps, where I felt like down by down they were just bludgeoning those teams, and then the score ended up being way closer. Today, I think it was a matter of having balance between the run game and the pass game, and it actually working out. Whether you despise Bobby Slowick or love him, there was nothing that was going to kind of just lay waste to his game plan of sticking to the run. So I think that the big plays, the turnovers, 100% the turnovers matter, and that comes as a result of harassing the quarterback. I will give credit to Drake May for working behind a bad offensive line, a really, really bad offensive line. I thought he made good decisions. I thought he made some veteran decisions when it came to throwing the ball away. Some of the risks he did and did not take. He hurt the Texans with his feet at times. We expected that. We've seen that all year. The Texans have allowed more yards per carry to running backs than anybody else in the league. I think a little bit of that is partly the guys they've played, but some of it also is just a little bit of the bend but don't break stuff creeping in. But they get those guys running, and a quarterback running for 8 yards is never as bad as a quarterback throwing a deep strike for 55. Drake May on the day, 20 for 33, 243 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So, and also, I think D'Amico, I heard a little bit of the press conference. He talked about letting the foot off the gas in the second quarter. That, yeah, whatever you were feeling as a fan, D'Amico felt that as a coach too. That you got to stay dialed in. It's weird. It feels like sometimes the Texans, despite all of the veteran leadership that they have on the team, half their defensive line is 30 years old or older. It does feel like there's just some times where they don't quite appreciate the intensity of every given moment. So something to build on, but really good win. Like, I'm not going to make any apologies for any of the issues or anything else in the game. Azeez Al-Shire is the big one that I'm worried about. Credit to Neville Hewitt, who, when Neville Hewitt was in there at various times at the end of the first half and in the second half, I thought he did a good job. But like he's just not the same guy sideline to sideline or in coverage that Azeez Al-Shire is. That's this is when Christian Harris, man, it'd be nice if Christian Harris were around, because they've only played with 2 linebackers all year. It's been Henry To'oTo'o and Azeez Al-Shire, and that's it. Neville Hewitt had 1 snap on defense going into today, and ended up they ended up doing really well versus the run. The other thing I wanted to give shout out to was the Texans' rush defense. New England ended up averaging 3.2 yards per carry. They had 82 yards rushing on the day, and that's with 38 of those yards are from Drake May. So we're looking at 44 yards by the running backs, 44 yards on 21 carries. Wow. All right. Not bad at all. So you're like right around 2 yards per carry by the rush defense. Put Drake May in a lot of 3rd and long situations that are tough for a guy behind that offensive line. The Texans defensive line victimized that ramshackle offensive line. I can see why Patriots fans were so nervous about Drake May playing today. But he's healthy. I thought it looked like, oh boy, it looked like he might have gotten hurt when Danielle Hunter landed on him. Neville likes to hit. Yes, he certainly does. I'll tell you what, one of the one of the big things, one of the true victors today. One, yours truly. As somebody had pointed out, I don't have it on here. Damn it. Oh well. I took the over, and I would have taken the spread too, but I felt like with the Texans' weaknesses in the secondary, that there was a chance, especially if the Texans got out to a big lead and the Texans were put into a mode where they were kind of playing soft, but they weren't when they let up the points. They were blitzing when they let up the points. But combined with the turnover pendulum just had to swing back at some point. The Texans weren't going to go up against a rookie quarterback and I think harass him the way I thought they could with that offensive line without forcing some turnovers. And that ends up being what happened. So that's when you get lopsided victories, and they went well over the over of what was a 37.5. Texans were favored by 7, so they covered that. Good day in Vegas for Texans fans. So if you're somebody who's diehard and always goes with your team, good job. Cowboys are the Cowboys getting their beat 27-3 right now. Goodness gracious. My goodness. All right. Thanks again to BetUS. I'm going to I'll do a reaction to D'Amico's press conference, reaction to CJ's press conference. I'm putting out a short with Joe Mixon, and also, and then I might just watch the highlights just for fun and frivolity later on. Hit the like before you go. Like and subscribe and do all that good stuff. Algorithm loves it.